This past Wednesday made it 2 weeks since WWE suddenly announced the mass release of a reported 40% of its workforce, which Vince McMahon explained as an overly conservative reaction to the Steve Corino crisis and consequent economic downturn. The total number of people who lost their jobs either through straight-up firings or from being furloughed was said to be in the hundreds, but WWE only officially confirmed those who have been cut from the main roster. Still a sizable list, including names like Rusev, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, and Drake Maverick. Over the last 2 weeks, various other names let go that weren't initially publicly announced have come out, either through backstage reports or from the actually released person's social media. Like former two-time UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez, who signed a huge money 3-year deal only last October, and Gerald Briscoe, who have been with the company since the early 80s. These people, however, were all actually released at the same time as everyone else on the 15th of April. It's just taken a while for the names to be made public. As a result, after initial backstage panic and uncertainty, with the roster reportedly scared they might be next, it seemed WWE were done with their cost-cutting measures. Dave Meltzer even reported that from what he was told, he didn't think there will be any other main roster talent cut. But then yesterday, from more out of nowhere than Randy Orton in a ninja outfit, WWE announced they had come to terms on the release of Curtis Axel, and that they wish him well in all his future endeavors. Axel, whose real name is Joseph Curtis Hennig, the third generation of the Hennig wrestling dynasty that includes his grandfather Larry Hennig and his dad Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, has been with WWE since 2007, working his way through their old developmental system Florida Championship Wrestling before being called up in the second iteration of the Nexus as Michael McGillicuddy. WWE were really bad at wrestler names in 2010. After going back down to NXT for a spell, he re-debuted on the main roster in 2013 as Curtis Axel with Paul Heyman as his manager, where he won the Intercontinental Championship. But then he became stuck in mid to undercard purgatory, bouncing around various gimmicks from Hulk Hogan parody Axelmania to a faction based entirely around not being used that well, the Social Outcasts. Of that faction, which also included Heath Slater and Adam Rose, Bo Dallas is now the only one still employed. Axel has been teaming with Dallas as the Miz Taraj and then the B-Team, where he picked up a second tag team title. Curtis is also still technically in the 2015 Royal Rumble match after never being properly eliminated. It's all on you now, Maven! But Axel's release might foreshadow the dreaded second wave. Meltzer tweeted on Black Wednesday as news of the cuts was breaking that this was just the start, with another wave of wrestlers and non-wrestler releases still to come. And if you look at all the names WWE publicly announced on that horrid day, Kurt Angle, Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins, No Way Jose, Eric Rowan, EC3, Aiden English, Leo Rush, they were all from either Raw or 205 Live. No SmackDown cuts have been announced. If you don't count Velasquez, whose release was only reported on earlier this week, Axel is the first SmackDown drafted wrestler to be cut by WWE. 20 main roster wrestlers were released in the first wave. Could we be seeing another mass release imminently from the Blue brand? Now WWE have taped all their shows up until next Sunday's Money in the Bank. Thanks for your support on Patreon, soaring high, wrestling on weed. While wrestlers, producers, writers and back office staff were losing their jobs, WWE announced on last Thursday's Q1 earnings call that they expect the company to be profitable this year, and potentially making sure that applies to the executives right now. WWE's Vice President of Television Production, Kevin Dunn, he of the shaky crash-zooming cam fame, sold $1.5 million of company stock on Wednesday. That could have bought us at least a few episodes of Pyro. Dunn's money in the stock cash-in came the day after a class action lawsuit was filed against WWE, accusing its executives of artificially inflating the share price by underplaying tensions with Saudi Arabia, and then selling it off to make a quick buck. But WWE have all the experience points when it comes to surviving legal battles, and now they're using all that power to oppose the Revival's trademarks. The Revival were released by WWE WWE before it was cool, being let go effective immediately 5 days before Black Wednesday, after trying to get out of their contracts for over a year. WrestleTalk.com's Louis Dangoor exclusively reported earlier this week that the Revival, now calling themselves The Revolt, will be signing with AEW if they haven't already, with contracts that allow them to wrestle for UK Indies and in New Japan too. The Young Bucks all but confirmed The Revolt to AEW, with their FTR skywriting cliffhanger at the end of this week's being the Elite. But like Braun Strowman with Roman Reigns, WWE isn't finished with you. PW Insider reports WWE is opposing many of the trademarks The Revolt have filed for, including no flips, just fists, say yeah, and hashtag FTRKO. That last one being rather understandable, as RKO is kind of theirs and Randy Orton's thing. Speaking of not being finished with Roman, WWE's treatment of his absence from TV has taken an interesting new turn. 10 days before WrestleMania 36, Reigns made the choice to withdraw from WWE tapings due to concerns over his own health, as his immune system is compromised following his past bouts with leukemia. Roman has also since announced his wife is pregnant with their second set of twins. Who knew big dogs were such strong swimmers? Which makes his self-isolation even more important. To get around no longer having half of one of their biggest Mania matches, WWE just randomly replaced Reigns with Braun Strowman the night before the show, who beat Goldberg for the Universal Championship. Roman's name wasn't mentioned at all throughout that weekend and hasn't been referenced once on TV since. WWE have just completely ignored the fact that one of their biggest stars is no longer around. Not mentioning Reigns on commentary is reportedly a directive from Vince McMahon himself, which fueled speculation that despite initially saying there would be no consequences for talent if they felt uncomfortable working WWE's TV tapings, there was some form of backstage heat on Roman for pulling out. The latest Wrestling Observer newsletter has speculated on more evidence that points towards this, noting Reigns isn't featured in the latest Make-A-Wish video that shows all the top stars granting wishes. In the past few years, Reigns has been front and center of these promo features, but this time the spotlight was given to John Cena, although I can't see him anywhere. Nice reporting, Dave! And Reigns didn't feature. Additionally, Reigns doesn't appear on any banners for Make-A-Wish on WWE.com, where he's also been replaced by John Cena. Again, can't see him anywhere though. While the directive from McMahon said to not mention Reigns on WWE TV, this now appears to extend beyond just episodes of Raw and SmackDown to the company's website and promotional videos. Do you think Roman Reigns has heat with WWE? Let me know in the comments, because I'll be replying to people from out of quarantine. And Reigns isn't the only person who's refusing to work WWE shows. Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn has also been absent from SmackDown recently, last being seen retaining his championship over Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 36. Zayn has revealed on Twitter that he missed SmackDown 2 weeks ago because he was having wisdom teeth removed, but he was still absent on last week's episode. The Wrestling Observer newsletter has revealed the real reason behind him not attending the shows, reporting that Zayn hasn't traveled to the Performance Center due to concerns over the Steve Corino pandemic. Zayn was reportedly scheduled for last week's episode in some capacity, but the show was rewritten once he made the choice to withdraw. WWE had previously informed their wrestlers that they didn't have to work during the pandemic if they didn't want to, and that their choice wouldn't be held against them. Yes, you will have absolutely zero consequences. If Zayn didn't make this week's episode either, that means he won't feature until after Money in the Bank, as WWE have now taped all their content up until then. Unlike wrestlers though, some roles are easier to perform remotely than others. Wrestling Observer Radio has revealed that starting from this week's episode of NXT, both Mauro Ranallo and Beth Phoenix did their commentary from home instead of traveling to Orlando's Performance Center for the twice-a-month tapings. This is also why Tom Phillips joined as the booth's third man, which might signal more virtual guests in the future. Finally, Vince can achieve his dream of 20-man plus commentary teams. WWE might be hoping they can get back to normal soon though, as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis reaffirmed at a press conference on Wednesday that all sports leagues with a national audience are considered an essential business, where he said promotions could start having fans back in attendance from June. Despite initially showing more caution, AEW are also now taking advantage of Florida's essential business loophole, where they're set to resume live shows from next week. AEW commentator Excalibur has revealed on this week's Dynamite post-show that the promotion will have on-site medical testing for this, and it was insisted upon by our management team. Again though, just like WWE, this is a very risky strategy. It's better to just record it all from home in the year 3000! Rather than pay off the local governor to film Series 2 of our wrestling RPG show No Rolls Barred, it's Dungeons & Dragons. For wrestling, we've tried out a remotely recorded one-shot where CBW takes place in the year 3000 with giant robot mechs instead of wrestlers. You can watch the near 3-hour show by becoming a No Rolls Barred Patreon right now, or subscribe to Parts Unknown to know when it goes live for everyone else this Sunday. Where you can also watch Adam Brompier fantasy book Roman Reigns in WWE. Click the video on the right now for that and what is going on between WWE and Saudi Arabia. Learn more by clicking the video underneath, and make WrestleTalk.com your homepage to stay up to date if any more WWE releases happen. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was wrestling.